The bargain. The Meridian's edge drifted silently through the void between stars, her hull scarred from countless journeys through hostile space. Captain Dex Morrison stood before the holographic display in his quarters, studying the terms of the most unusual contract he'd ever received. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium, one of the galaxy's most powerful alien syndicates, had approached Earth's exploration core with an unprecedented offer. They possessed quantum-fold drive technology that could revolutionize human space travel, cutting journey times between systems from months to mere days. In exchange, they wanted something Earth considered worthless, obsolete mining equipment from the abandoned asteroid colonies, but there was a catch. The Zephyrians insisted on sealing the deal with what they called a cultural exchange, a single night with two of their most prized genetic specimens, females bred for perfection in their society. It was presented as an honor, a gesture of trust between species. Dex had volunteered immediately, despite protests from his crew. At 35, he'd spent half his life in deep space, watching civilizations rise and fall. He understood alien customs better than most, and he knew this wasn't about pleasure, it was about power, dominance, and possibly intelligence gathering. The rendezvous point was a neutral station orbiting a dead world. As Dex's shuttle approached the Zephyrian dreadnought Crimson Nexus, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into a trap. The massive ship's bioorganic hull pulsed with veins of bioluminescent energy, a testament to their advanced biotechnology. Ambassador Vorthak greeted him in the docking bay, a towering figure with iridescent scales and forearms ending in razor-sharp talons. Commander Morrison, the alien's voice resonated through a translator collar, you honor us with your presence. The trade goods have been verified. Now, we complete our arrangement. They escorted him through corridors that seemed grown rather than built, walls breathing with alien life. The air tasted metallic, heavy with pheromones that made his skin prickle. Finally, they stopped before an ornate door marked with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Beyond this threshold wait Kira and Zara, Vorthak explained, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. They are our finest achievements, genetically perfected, mentally conditioned, and trained in arts your species can barely comprehend. They will serve your every desire until dawn. The door dilated like a living iris, revealing a chamber bathed in soft, purple light. Two figures waited inside, humanoid but clearly alien, with luminescent skin and eyes like liquid starlight. They knelt in perfect synchronization, heads bowed submissively. Enjoy your night, human, Vorthak hissed, the door sealing behind Dex with a sound like a sigh. Silence fell. Dex studied the two beings before him. They were beautiful in an otherworldly way, but what struck him most was their stillness, like caged birds who had forgotten how to sing. This wasn't an honor or a cultural exchange. This was something far more complex and potentially dangerous. The real question was, what did the Zephyrians truly want from him? Unexpected humanity. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of alien technology. Dex remained standing near the entrance, hands clasped behind his back in a stance that was more observatory than predatory. The two alien women, Kira and Zara, maintained their kneeling positions, awaiting his command. You can stand up, Dex said quietly, his voice cutting through the tension. I'm not going to hurt you. The one with silver-white hair and pale blue skin raised her head first. This was Kira, he realized, her eyes held a spark of defiance despite her submissive posture. Beside her, Zara possessed darker features, her skin a deep violet with intricate bioluminescent patterns that pulsed gently along her arms and neck. We are here to serve, Kira spoke, her accent musical but stilted, as if the words were rehearsed. Our purpose is your pleasure, human. My name is Dex, he corrected, moving to a chair across the room rather than approaching them. And I said you could stand. This isn't a command, it's an invitation. Confusion flickered across both their faces. Slowly, uncertainly, they rose to their feet. Zara swayed slightly, as if standing without permission was a foreign concept. How long have you been in this syndicate? Dex asked, settling into the chair with deliberate casualness. We were bred for this purpose, Zara answered, her voice softer than Kira's. We have served the consortium since our maturation cycles began. That's not what I asked. Dex leaned forward, studying their expressions. She asked how long you've been here. When did you last see sunlight? Or choose what to eat for breakfast? The questions seemed to physically disturb them. Kira's Bioluminescent markings flared brighter, while Zara wrapped her arms around herself protectively. We do not understand, Kira said, though her tone suggested she understood perfectly. She simply had no framework to process the concepts. Dex stood and moved to a wall panel, adjusting the lighting to something warmer, more natural. On my ship, we have a tradition. Every evening after shift change, the crew gathers in the mess hall. We share stories about home, about adventures, about dreams we have for the future. Would you like to hear one? Without waiting for an answer, he began describing Earth, blue oceans stretching to the horizon, forests where wind rustled through leaves, cities where millions of people made their own choices every day. He spoke of his childhood in the Colorado mountains, of hiking trails where the only sound was his own breathing and the crunch of pine needles underfoot. As he talked, something remarkable happened. The rigid postures of the two women began to relax. Zara sat tentatively on the edge of a cushioned platform, while Kira remained standing but no longer at attention. Their eyes, previously vacant and dutiful, began to show curiosity. Your world sounds. Zara paused, searching for words. Chaotic. Beautifully chaotic, Dex agreed. People make mistakes, fall in love, create art, start families, explore the unknown. They live. We were told humans were crude, Kira said, a note of uncertainty creeping into her voice. That you took what you wanted without consideration. For others. Some do, Dex admitted. But most of us try to be better than our worst impulses. Tell me, what do you dream about? The question hit them like a physical blow. Zara's patterns flickered erratically, while Kira stepped backward as if struck. We are not permitted to dream, Kira whispered. In that moment, Dex understood the true horror of their situation. These weren't just slaves, they were beings whose very capacity for hope had been systematically stripped away. And somehow, against all odds, he was going to find a way to give it back. Breaking chains. 3 hours had passed, and the atmosphere in the chamber had transformed completely. What began as a sterile transaction had evolved into something neither side expected: genuine conversation. Dex had shared stories of human exploration, of the Aurora project that had first brought humanity to the stars, and of the diverse worlds they'd discovered. Kira sat cross-legged on the floor now, her posture relaxed for the first time in memory. You speak of choice as if it were sacred, she said, testing the unfamiliar concept. But choice leads to chaos, does it not? Error. Suffering. Sometimes, Dex acknowledged, leaning against the wall. But it also leads to growth, innovation, love. The capacity to choose poorly is the same capacity that allows us to choose well. Zara had been quietly absorbing every word, her bioluminescent patterns shifting in ways that seemed almost thoughtful. In our breeding chambers, she said hesitantly, there were others. Failed genetic experiments. They were terminated for inefficiency. She paused, looking at her hands. I always wondered what they might have become if given the chance to choose their own purpose. The admission hung in the air like a confession. Dex felt a surge of anger, not at these women, but at the system that had shaped them into living tools. What would you choose now, if you could? He asked. The question seemed to paralyze them. Kira's markings flared bright blue, while Zara's patterns pulsed erratically. They exchanged glances, communicating in a way that transcended words. Oh. I would like to see your earth forests, Zara whispered, as if the admission were treasonous. To feel wind that was not controlled by atmospheric processes. I would learn to pilot a starship, Kira added, her voice gaining strength. To navigate by stars instead of being cargo transported between them. Dex smiled, the first genuine expression of joy he'd felt in months. Those aren't impossible dreams. They are just dreams you've been told are impossible. A chime sounded. Through the chamber, 6 hours until dawn. The reminder of their time limit cast a shadow over the moment. When the sun rises, Kira said, her newfound hope already dimming, we return to the genetic preservation chambers. This night will be classified, analyzed, and filed away. We will undergo memory conditioning to ensure no contamination from our exposure to human concepts. Memory conditioning. Selective neural adjustment, Zara explained clinically. Any thoughts or experiences deemed counterproductive to our function are removed. We will remember serving you, but not of this. She gestured to the space between them, to the invisible bonds of understanding they'd forged. Dex felt something crystallize in his chest, a determination he'd felt only once before, when he'd first volunteered for deep space exploration. What? If you didn't go back? Both women stared at him as if he'd suggested they sprout wings and fly. Escape is impossible, Kira said automatically. We are genetically tagged, neurally monitored, and biochemically dependent on consortium supplements. Without regular treatments, we would die within cycles. Would you, though? Dex pressed. Or is that just another chain they've convinced you is unbreakable? The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and terror. Outside the chamber, the Zephyr dreadnought continued its predetermined course through space, carrying its precious cargo toward another day of beautiful, controlled existence. But inside this small room, three beings had discovered something the consortium hadn't accounted for in their calculations: the human capacity to inspire hope, and hope's dangerous tendency to spread like wildfire through even the most carefully constructed prison. Dawn was still hours away, but Dex was already planning for what would come after the escape. The remaining hours until dawn flew by as Dex outlined an escape plan that grew bolder with each passing minute. Using his knowledge of alien ship systems and the women's intimate understanding of consortium protocols, they identified a narrow window of opportunity. The bioscanners reset during shift change, Zara explained, her scientific training evident as she accessed wall displays. For exactly 97 seconds, the internal sensors recalibrate. During that time, unauthorized movement reads as system noise. Kira nodded, her tactical mind engaging. The docking bay maintains minimal crew during deep space transit. If we can reach your shuttle, the real problem is the genetic markers, Dex interrupted. Even if we escape the ship, they'll track you across the galaxy. Zara's patterns flickered with an emotion Dex was learning to recognize as determination. The medical bay has a gene splicing array used for our conditioning treatments. If we can reverse engineer it, you're talking about rewriting your own DNA, Dex said, awed by the implications. Not rewriting, Kira corrected. Masking. The tracking markers are artificially introduced during maturation. In theory, they can be extracted. The plan was insane: infiltrate the medical bay, perform genetic surgery on themselves, and escape during a 7-second window, all while avoiding detection by some of the galaxy's most advanced security systems. Any sane person would call it suicide. I'm in, Dex said without hesitation. The shift change began exactly on schedule. Moving like shadows, they slipped through corridors that pulsed with alien life. Zara's knowledge of the ship's layout proved invaluable, while Kira's understanding of guard rotations kept them hidden from patrols. The medical bay loomed ahead, a cathedral of biotechnology where dozens of Zephyr genetic experiments were conducted daily. The gene splicing array hummed with dormant power, its organic components twitching in response to their presence. I'll need to access your genetic template, Zara explained, her hands dancing over biomechanical controls. The process will be uncomfortable. Both women strapped themselves into the array's embrace, their faces masks of determined terror. Dex monitored the corridor, his pulse racing as alien footsteps echoed in nearby passages. The procedure began with a sound like singing. Crystals. Kira gritted her teeth as molecular needles penetrated her skin, seeking the artificial markers embedded in her genetic code. Zara's patterns flared so brightly they illuminated the entire chamber. 60 seconds, Dex whispered, the extraction process accelerated, and both women convulsed as their bodies rejected the foreign genetic material. Blood, silver in Kira's case, deep purple in Zara's, began to pool beneath the array. 30 seconds. Warning lights began flashing as the ship's biosensors detected the genetic anomaly. Somewhere in the command center, alarms were undoubtedly screaming. 10 seconds, Dex called out, helping them from the array. Both women were pale but mobile, genetic freedom burning in their eyes. They ran. The docking bay erupted in chaos as they burst through the entrance. Zephyr guards raised biopulse weapons, but Dex was faster. His sidearm spat coherent energy, dropping 2 guards before they could fire. Kira moved with fluid grace, her conditioned reflexes turning her into a living weapon as she disabled 3 more with precise strikes. The shuttle's engines were already warming up, responding to Dex's remote activation. They dove through the airlock as the bay's atmosphere began venting, a security measure designed to prevent exactly this type of escape. "Hold on," Dex shouted, throwing the shuttle into full acceleration. The artificial gravity failed, sending them tumbling as the small craft shot from the dreadnought's embrace into open space. Behind them, the Crimson Nexus came alive with weapon signatures. Energy beams lanced through space where the shuttle had been moments before. But Dex had anticipated this. His flight path took them through the dead system's asteroid field, using the rocky debris as cover. "They are jamming our communications," Kira reported from the co-pilot station, her hands flying over human controls with surprising aptitude. "Doesn't matter," Dex replied, watching pursuit ships deploy from the dreadnought. "We are not calling for help, we're running toward it." In the distance, a familiar silhouette waited among the asteroids, the Meridian's edge, her weapons powered and shields raised. Dex's crew had been monitoring communications, ready to extract their captain the moment things went wrong. What they hadn't expected was for him to bring company. As the shuttle docked with his ship, Dex felt the artificial gravity of familiar Dex beneath his feet. They were safe, for now. But he knew this was only the beginning. The consortium would never stop hunting them, and 2 escaped genetic experiments would make the entire crew fugitives. Looking at Kira and Zara, seeing hope blazing in their alien eyes, Dex decided it was worth it. Some things were more important than safety. New Horizons. 6 months later, the Meridian's edge held position in the Kepler Nebula, her hull modified with adaptive camouflage that made her nearly invisible against the swirling cosmic gases. The ship had become something unprecedented in human space, a refuge for beings seeking freedom from oppressive regimes across the galaxy. Dex stood on the observation deck, watching Zara tend to the hydroponic gardens she'd established in former cargo holds. Her bioluminescent patterns had evolved, developing new configurations that pulsed with contentment rather than the rigid efficiency patterns of her conditioning. She'd discovered an aptitude for agriculture that had revolutionized the ship's food production. "Captain," Kira's voice came through the comm system. She'd taken to navigation like she was born to it, her enhanced spatial awareness making her the finest pilot Dex had ever known. "We're receiving a transmission from the Haven network. 3 more ships requesting sanctuary coordinates." The Haven network, that's what the refugees had started calling their growing coalition of escaped beings, sympathetic humans and rogue AI entities seeking self-determination. What had begun as a desperate escape had evolved into something resembling a movement. "Send them the protocols," Dex replied. "And remind them about the genetic scrambler requirements. The consortium's tracking methods are getting more sophisticated." Through the observation window, he could see one of their recent additions, a family of Andromedan crystalline beings whose homeworld had been strip-mined by corporate interests. Their children played in the modified gravity chambers, their crystal formations chiming with laughter that hadn't been heard in their species for generations. Zara approached, her steps silent on the deck plating. Her transformation over the past months had been remarkable. Where once stood a genetically perfected slave, now walked a woman who had chosen her own identity. "The neural mapping project is showing promising results," she reported, settling beside him. "Dr. Kowalski believes we can completely reverse consortium conditioning within 2 more months." Dr. Kowalski, a human neuroscientist who joined them after his research into AI consciousness had been classified and suppressed by Earth's government. Another refugee, another person who'd chosen freedom over security. "Any word from the Outer Rim colonies?" Dex asked. 3 more systems have declared themselves sanctuary zones. Kira's voice carried pride that would have been impossible in her former existence. "The consortium's political influence is waning as more worlds refuse to honor their extradition treaties." A gentle chime announced the arrival of the day's new refugees, a transport carrying 37 beings from 12 different species, all fleeing various forms of systematic oppression. Each represented a small victory, a choice made in favor of uncertain freedom over guaranteed subjugation. Dex thought back to that night on the Zephyr dreadnought, to the moment when he'd decided to treat 2 enslaved beings as people rather than property. He couldn't have imagined where that single act of human decency would lead. "Do you ever regret it?" Zara asked quietly, seeming to read his thoughts. "You could have taken the quantum drive technology and returned to your old life. Instead, you're a fugitive leading a revolution you never intended to start." Dex smiled, watching a group of young beings from various species share a meal in the communal dining area, a sight that would have been impossible anywhere else in the galaxy. I spent my life exploring space, he said. But the most important discovery I ever made was learning that freedom isn't something you find, it's something you choose to create, and then choose to share. The Meridian's Edge continued its journey through the nebula, carrying its precious cargo of free beings toward destinations unknown. Behind them, the consortium's pursuit ships searched empty space, their advanced sensors unable to penetrate the ship's adaptive camouflage. But more importantly, they couldn't detect the one thing that made the refugees truly invisible, the unshakable conviction that some things, dignity, choice, the right to determine one's own destiny, were worth any risk to defend. In cargo Hold 7, converted now into a school, human children learned alongside alien offspring. In the engineering bays, a dozen species worked together to improve technology none of them could have advanced alone. In the quiet moments between crises, Kira and Zara discovered what it meant to dream of tomorrow rather than simply surviving today. The galaxy had taken notice. Freedom, it turned out, was as contagious as hope. And hope, once kindled, was impossible to extinguish.